Most men think compliments are harmless, polite, forgettable. But one sentence said wrong can kill attraction faster than silence. Listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you isn't taught, shared, or spoken out loud. Women don't fantasize about compliments the way men imagine. They don't melt because you admire her beauty, her body, or her smile. Those words are noise. She's heard them since she was 15, sometimes earlier from men who wanted something and men who didn't know how to ask. When you compliment what every man notices, you place yourself exactly where every man stands. Familiar, safe, invisible. The first compliment that creates fantasy isn't about how she looks. It's about how she makes you feel, but not in the weak way most men say it. Saying, "You make me happy," or "I feel good around you," hands her emotional control before she's earned it. It signals hunger. Fantasy doesn't grow where hunger is obvious. It grows where restraint lives. The compliment that triggers her imagination sounds calm, grounded, almost casual. It says, "When I'm around you, my mind slows down." That's it. No pleading tone, no expectation. You're not asking her to do anything. You're revealing an internal shift she didn't try to create. This hits deep because women are wired to notice emotional impact. You're not praising her existence. You're noticing her effect. That makes her curious. Curiosity is the doorway to fantasy. When she hears that she affects your internal state, not your desire, her mind starts filling in the blanks. Why does he feel calm with me? What does he see that others miss? She begins imagining herself through your eyes. And that inner image is far more powerful than any physical compliment. Most men ruin this by stacking words, explaining too much, or adding neediness right after. They say the line, then follow it with validation-seeking behavior, laughter, or self-deprecation. The power collapses instantly. A strong compliment stands alone. It doesn't ask for approval. It doesn't wait for a reaction. Understand this. Fantasy doesn't come from what you give her. It comes from what you don't take from her. When your words don't demand reassurance, affection, or validation, they feel rare. Scarcity is seductive. Emotional discipline is attractive. This is why timing matters more than language. Say it once, then change the subject. Let silence do the work. Let her sit with the feeling that she has an effect on you without knowing how far that effect goes. That unanswered space is where fantasy grows teeth. Remember this truth and don't forget it. The wrong compliment feeds her ego. The right compliment feeds her imagination. Men who master this don't rush outcomes. They observe reactions, not responses. A pause, a softer voice, a slower blink tells more than words ever will. Attraction isn't loud, it's subtle. If you feel the urge to repeat yourself, stop. If you want to clarify, don't. Confidence shows in what you allow to remain unsaid. This is how presence replaces performance. This is how you become memorable without chasing. And once a woman associates you with calm, depth, and emotional gravity, her mind will return to you when you're not there. That is the quiet beginning of fantasy. And it grows strongest in stillness, distance, and self-control when nothing is forced ever. Now, let's talk about the second compliment most men get catastrophically wrong. The one that touches on her intelligence or personality. You might think, she'll love it if I tell her how smart she is. But here's the hard truth. Women hear that all the time. You're so smart. You're incredible. You're amazing. Those words, when delivered by men, usually sound transactional. They expect admiration, validation, or a reaction. Instead of sparking desire, it often triggers skepticism or boredom. The fantasy-triggering version of this compliment doesn't praise what she thinks she is. It points to a quality she cannot articulate, a subtle effect she has on the world, or the way she changes her environment without realizing it. It's not about labeling her smart. It's about noticing the ripples she creates. You might say calmly, "I notice the way people naturally listen when you speak. It's rare." That's it. Simple, observational, grounded in reality, and completely disarming. Why does this work? Because it shows awareness. It shows that you see her in ways she doesn't even expect. Every woman has been told she's smart, funny, or kind. Few men tell her, "I notice the impact your mind has on the world around you." You're shifting the focus from abstract validation to real-world consequence. You're acknowledging influence, not ego, and influence is intoxicating. Most men destroy attraction here by over-explaining or adding qualifiers. You're smart. I mean, really smart. Like the smartest I've met in a long time. That's desperation disguised as flattery. The right compliment lands like a soft whisper of truth. It doesn't inflate, it illuminates. She's left thinking, wait, he actually notices things about me no one else sees. That gap between her perception of herself and your observation creates mental tension, the same tension that fuels fantasy. The tone matters as much as the words. Say it with neutral confidence, a hint of warmth, but no pleading or exaggeration. A casual observation implies authenticity. A rehearsed line screams performance. Women can detect performance instantly. And nothing kills fantasy faster than obvious performance. Notice the psychological trick here. The compliment doesn't serve you. It doesn't demand affection, a smile, or a response. It simply reflects truth through your lens. She's free to react or not. She feels intrigue, not obligation. That's what makes her imagination start weaving scenarios in her mind, imagining possibilities, the what-ifs that most men think they can manufacture with grand gestures or overused lines. The men who fail at this forget. Fantasy grows in mystery, subtlety, and perception. When you notice something deep and unspoken, you become rare. When you let her sit with that awareness, she begins to replay it over and over in her head. The compliment doesn't vanish, it lingers. She starts to wonder what else you notice, how much you really see, and whether she's aware of your quiet attention. Here's the takeaway. Stop giving her what every other man gives freely. Stop labeling and validating. Instead, observe, acknowledge, and let silence amplify your words. This is how you become unforgettable without demanding a reaction, without performing, without trying to be liked. Women fantasize about what they cannot control, about men who see them and remain steady, unaffected, grounded. And when you do this right, every simple compliment transforms into a spark that she can't ignore, even when she pretends she can. Now, let's uncover the third compliment that almost every man completely botches, the one about her appearance. You've been taught that noticing beauty is enough. You think she'll love it if I tell her she's gorgeous, sexy, or stunning. Wrong. Those words are everywhere. They're cheap, predictable, and disposable. Every woman has heard them so often that they no longer hold weight. And here's the catch. The wrong compliment about appearance signals exactly what most men do: neediness, desperation, or a lack of imagination. That's the opposite of fantasy. The fantasy-inducing compliment doesn't focus on the obvious. It doesn't tell her what she already knows. It doesn't linger on lips, eyes, or body curves. It zeroes in on subtle, almost invisible effects she has on you. For example, instead of saying, "You're beautiful," you might say calmly and almost casually, "There's something about the way you move through a room. It's magnetic without trying." That's it. No adjectives piling on, no expectation, pure observation. Why does this work? Because you're communicating a very different message. You notice her uniqueness, her presence, not just her looks. You're elevating her effect on your mind, your perception, and your internal state. This is the arena where fantasy begins. When a woman realizes her presence changes the energy around her, her imagination takes over. She starts thinking about herself through your eyes, and that imagined version of herself is far more potent than any surface-level compliment. Most men ruin this by exaggerating or over-explaining. They say, "You're insanely gorgeous. I've never seen anyone like you before. It's unreal. That's a mistake." Over. Praise reduces mystery. It signals that you're chasing validation from her reaction. Women pick up on it instantly. The key is brevity, subtlety, and authenticity. You don't need to articulate your desire. You need to reveal an effect she cannot fabricate, cannot anticipate. That's where attraction and fantasy intersect. The delivery is critical. Speak in a calm, measured tone. Allow your words to float naturally without urgency or performance. Silence is your ally. Once you give the compliment, shift attention elsewhere. Let her sit with it. Let her mind linger on the idea that she leaves an imprint on you without asking for it. That gap, the unspoken tension, fuels imagination more than flattery ever could. Another key point: the compliment must never be transactional. Don't attach expectation. Don't follow with "you should smile more" or "I wish you would notice me." Those add pressure and destroy fantasy. The moment a woman feels pressure, the spell breaks. Instead, the right compliment leaves her wondering subtly, quietly about her effect on you. Here's what most men will never understand. Women fantasize about what they cannot fully control or predict. They fantasize about presence, depth, calm confidence, and emotional gravity. When you notice her in a way that doesn't demand anything, doesn't inflate her ego, and doesn't chase a reaction, you've created a rare moment of tension in her mind, a tension that draws her back again and again. This is why the wrong compliments fail. They're loud, obvious, needy. The right ones are quiet, precise, and reflective. They spark curiosity, intrigue, and self-reflection. And once you master this subtle art of noticing, you become unforgettable. Not because you praise her, but because you see her in a way no one else does, leaving her mind spinning long after you leave the room. Now here's where most men completely lose the game: the hidden layer of compliments that triggers fantasy without a single word about looks, personality, or intellect. This is the realm of behavioral impact. The quiet ways she notices she affects you without you begging for attention or approval. Men who don't understand this are forever stuck in shallow attraction loops. They compliment what she sees, not what she feels. And fantasy doesn't live in what she sees. It lives in what she senses. Think about it. Women are wired to notice emotional effects before words. When you remain calm, confident, and subtly attentive, your reactions become a canvas for her imagination. She begins filling in the blanks, interpreting your subtle cues, guessing your thoughts, and imagining what your life would be like if she were a constant presence. The compliment that sparks fantasy isn't spoken, it's embodied. Your presence, your demeanor, your reactions, and the rare, carefully placed acknowledgement communicate more than any "you're amazing" ever could, but you can amplify it with words sparingly, intentionally, and observationally. For example, you might say, "I didn't realize how much lighter the room felt until you arrived." It's not praise. It's not about ego. It's a reflection of your internal experience, and it tells her something crucial. She has an effect on the world she doesn't even realize. That subtle acknowledgement creates curiosity, intrigue, and most importantly, fantasy. She starts replaying moments in her head, wondering why she moves you in ways other people can't. Most men fail here because they try too hard to sound clever or romantic. They stack adjectives, over-explain, or dramatize their feelings. That kills the magic. Fantasy thrives in subtlety, not theatrics. When you are understated, measured, and emotionally anchored, the woman notices, and her mind does the rest. She will unconsciously begin imagining scenarios where you're together, where your calm, grounded presence becomes a part of her life, where she can evoke that reaction naturally without you asking for it. Another fatal mistake men make is repeating themselves. A compliment becomes invisible after a second or third delivery. The impact isn't in volume, it's in rarity. Say it once, say it intentionally, then leave the thought lingering. Let her internalize it. Let her mind chase the idea, filling the space with desire and imagination. That's the essence of attraction. Absence plus effect. The strongest compliments, the ones that make women fantasize, always connect to impact. Not her beauty, not her intellect, not her charm, her effect on your mind, on your calm, on your presence. When you combine that with brevity, subtlety, and emotional discipline, fantasy doesn't just flicker, it ignites. Most men will never reach this level because they chase reactions, need validation, or deliver obvious praise. But the men who understand this principle, observing quietly, complimenting sparsely, and embodying impact, become unforgettable. She doesn't just remember your words, she remembers what it felt like to be around you. That memory, subtle and intangible, is what keeps her mind returning to you, imagining, wondering, and wanting. When you master this, every interaction becomes an unspoken puzzle for her imagination, where your calm control and rare precise acknowledgments create magnetic tension. You don't need to chase her attention. She's already mentally replaying you long after you've walked away. Now, let's bring everything together, because this is where most men fail to see the invisible thread connecting all powerful compliments, the emotional architecture that makes women fantasize. The first three types we covered, the subtle effect on you, the unnoticed influence of her mind, and the presence that shifts the energy of a room, aren't separate tactics. They're layers of perception woven together, and their power comes from restraint. Most men bombard women with words, eager for approval, craving reaction. That's why they fail. Fantasy isn't manufactured with effort. It emerges when a woman senses that you are grounded, aware, and emotionally independent. When you compliment her, it should never be about making her feel good in the obvious way. It's about making her realize she has an effect she cannot fully understand or control. That realization triggers curiosity, desire, and imagination. It turns everyday encounters into mental rehearsals of scenarios she plays in her mind. Timing is everything. Deliver a compliment, let it sit, then move on. Silence is your ally. Don't explain, repeat, or justify. Don't laugh nervously or seek a reaction. The unspoken tension, the mystery you maintain, creates mental space where fantasy can grow. Your words are anchors. Your presence is gravity, and the gap between them is where desire sparks. Women don't fantasize about men who are obvious or needy. They fantasize about men who are emotionally disciplined, who notice subtleties and react with calm authority. Now let's talk about the psychological mechanism behind it. Women's minds are wired to be attracted to men who signal control, stability, and awareness without demanding affection. A compliment that triggers fantasy highlights her impact on you subtly and without request. It's a mental equation. Your observation plus her unawareness plus your restraint, intrigue, and fantasy. Every time she notices that you see her in ways others do not, her imagination begins filling in gaps, projecting possibilities, wondering what you truly think, and imagining how she fits into your life or how she could. Most men miss this entirely because they confuse attention with desire. Desire is quiet, anchored, and self-contained. Attention is loud, fleeting, and often desperate. Women remember the quiet, anchored energy far longer than the obvious praise. This is why mastering the art of precise, subtle compliments transforms your presence. You don't have to be grand, poetic, or rehearsed. You just have to notice, observe, and allow your presence and words to resonate without needing immediate validation. Here's the takeaway for you. The wrong compliment inflates ego. The right compliment sparks imagination. The men who succeed don't chase. They observe, they notice, they remain emotionally anchored, and they deliver compliments that point to the unseen effects she has on the world and on you. When done correctly, she begins to replay those moments mentally, imagining your life together, your reactions, and your presence long after you've left the room. Now here's something for you. Think about the last compliment you gave that truly made a woman feel seen, without needing a reaction. Add up the elements. Observation, subtlety, emotional impact. Divide that by the number of times you over-explained or sought approval. What number do you get? Share your answer in the comments below. And if this video opened your mind, subscribe and share it with a friend who needs to hear this lesson. Fantasy isn't created by words. All